going, everybody.
Most everybody else
Every
does
stand
it
for the
on.
pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Sue.
Mr. Arcuri?
Here.
Mr. Bova? Mr. Brodsky?
Here.
Mr. Coyne?
Here.
Mr. Jalea?
Here.
Mark Ford?
Here.
Mr. Kane?
Here.
Mr. Karam?
Here.
Mr. Mahardy? Mr. Motolo?
Here.
Ms. Chesney? And Mr. Williams.
Would like to welcome Rich Karam to our board. Look forward to working with him. You have the February 16, 2016 draft minutes in your packet. Is there a motion to approve?
I make a motion.
Any corrections, deletions, comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. Are these resolutions, Pat, you need more time?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Bruce, maybe you can help Rich fold the agenda at the very back of his book. No, in his book.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There you go.
Oh, which came, yes. It's
There you
it's
go.
in the
Just
dirt
so you can see-
bag.
that's the agenda.
And open it up. It's
yes,
folded.
this
So
is
the
you
last sheet.
can open it up so you can see it all together.
Okay. Yeah, so the next three resolutions are ones that we have typically done every single year. This originated probably 17 years ago. The goal was to enable, at the time at least, the city of Utica, later we expanded it to other jurisdictions within the water system. These resolutions have enabled local government entities to be able to market properties that have been seized for back taxes and put them back in the hands of responsible taxpayers. And in order to facilitate that process, what we've done is we've made a waiver of back water charges that have been re-levied to property taxes. This way, somebody buying the property doesn't have to spend $2,000 or $3,000 paying off water bills that might be 3 or 4 years old from another owner. The thought was it's better for them to put that money into the house and fix it up. I was going to recommend to the chairman that if we could, I'd like to table these three resolutions for at least one more meeting because Ann Milgrano, our customer service manager, and I have had a lot of conversation with our general counsel attorney, Ken Bobrow, and we want to spend some time talking to both the city and the county about the process because things have evolved over the years. These are about 17 years old, and there's some instances where the process isn't necessarily mirroring what's in the resolutions. And so what we want to do is make sure that what we're doing is in accordance with the jurisdictions. And so Ken has already recommended some language changes. Ann and I have some thoughts about some forms that we think would be helpful for tracking and authorizing things. So with your permission, I'd like to put
Yeah,
these
no,
off.
we'll take a look at them next month.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is a resolution accepting part one of the short environmental assessment form under SECRA. I'll leave the rest of the deck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Under agenda item number 7, we have a resolution related to the SECR, State Environmental Quality Review Act review for a kind of a heavy maintenance project up in Hinckley. We have about 150 feet of West Canada stream bank that's kind of eroded. We're going to do about 200 lineal feet of repairs to correct that. Because we need a DEC stream bank permit, we will need to make that application before we can do that. We have to complete basically an initial SECR review. There's a short environmental assessment form which includes the basic project information. That gets sent out to the one involved agency, which is the DEC in this case, and they have 30 days to comment on it. Anticipating that we won't get a comment, this will come back before the board to basically close out the environmental review, then we can proceed with our application.
You see the resolutions in your packet. Any questions for Dick regarding this?
Is there a filing fee that they require?
No.
Don't
Not
give him
yet.
any ideas.
Not yet.
I was surprised I didn't see anything written here.
Registrations, things like tanks, you have to pay the fees for.
Yeah.
Not these so far.
Now we pay Oneida County for some of these services.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Dick? Someone inclined to move the motion as presented? Frank, thank you. Lynn, second. Any further comments or concerns? All those in favor? Anybody opposed? Thank you. You have the fourth quarter quarterly investment statement in your packet ending 12/31/2015. Jim?
Yes.
It's under
New York State Public
miscellaneous.
Authority,
It's under miscellaneous.
oh, yes, it's in your packet, I believe. There you go. New York State Public Facilities Law requires us to provide you a quarterly investment report showing the investment holdings, any earnings, any expenses. We do this on a quarterly basis. This is the fourth quarter of the year, the last quarter of 2015. We're required to present it to you for approval. Any questions?
Could you add any more to that VOA repurchase agreement? That's not going right on.
Yes, isn't it good? A lot of them are out there,
Yeah.
really good.
Bruce moves it. A second?
Second.
Any other comments or concerns? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. You have the finance report in your packet. Any comments on this, Jim?
This is the second month of our calendar year. Consumption is down a little bit, about 1.5 million cubic feet. However, revenues are pretty much on track. Cash flow is doing pretty well. We take a little dip in cash flow to start with, and then we build it up over the months during the year. So we took a little dip this past month, accumulated over the past 2 months. So we should be able to catch that up if things continue on going the way that it's supposed to go.
Any questions for Jim regarding this
Do you
statement?
think we bottomed out on,
I hope so. I mean, we're taking some dips here and there, but hopefully, I would think that, you know, the winter is more mild. Summer, hopefully, people will be out doing things, using water. So I'm hoping, even though we have budgeted for a reduction in consumption, just to be conservative, I would think that we're at the bottom.
well, I know the golf courses are all planning to start up early and they use on the water.
Yeah.
And you got, supposed to be a couple companies moving into.
Yeah, once we get the Quad C building occupied and AMS arrives, I know they'll be bringing some outsiders. I think we'll see a little bit of a housing boom and a lot more residential activity, business activity. I think the restaurants and hotels are gonna really pick up over the next 2 years. So I think we'll see general consumption overall start to gradually tick up, in addition to what's gonna happen right at those two sites themselves. So to answer the question, I think probably the worst is over as far as the trend of declining consumption over the years. Quad C is going to use around 150,000 gallons a day, maybe 200,000, which would put them almost on par with the brewery. But once AMS is up and running full steam, it's going to be somewhere around 2 million gallons a day, which, you know, right then and there is, you know, basically a 10% increase in consumption for us.
Right.
So
That'll be
it'll
big.
be fine.
No reductions in major customers. Their consumption has been pretty consistent, so guessing, I would say that we're going to continue the same trend.
Any other questions for Jim? Thanks, Jim. Pat, your report, please.
Yep, got a couple of items for you. First and foremost, I want to commend our engineering department and our maintenance department. We've, I think, pretty much completed the sweep through the system for leak detection. Initial sweep through the entire distribution system with an outside leak detector consultant. They've been finding a lot of leaks. Our maintenance department has been very aggressive at getting out there and fixing them as fast as we can find them. As you all know, as fast as we find them, new ones developed. But because this winter wasn't nearly as severe as it was last winter, and you may recall last winter we were getting 4, 5, 6 main breaks a day, and we had to call on outside contractors to keep up with it. We fortunately did not have that situation, so we actually got a little bit of ahead of it. And at this point, Dick has informed me that, you know, we're looking at overall withdrawals and processing at the plant. It's down about 1.5 million to 2 million gallons a day on average compared to last winter. So I think we've made a pretty good step in tightening the system up somewhat. Will it stay like that? You know, it's hard to say. But right now, because of this winter being a little more mild, we were able to get a little bit ahead of the curve on it and picked up some ground. So I think that's great news. And, you know, as I said, we're drawing less through the plant right now than we were a year ago at this time. So my compliments to all of our maintenance folks out there in our engineering department. Next thing I want to mention, if you saw in the news last week, the City of Utica Common Council acted on the mayor's budget proposal. They made a number of amendments. It appears, at least from what I understand, the initiative that the mayor wanted to look at as far as the promissory note that the Water Authority pays every year to the city on the original purchase price, doing 20 years left on that note. The mayor had discussed perhaps having that accelerated, which meant we would have bonded to pay off the promissory note much earlier. Common Council seemingly didn't agree with that, and I believe, and Frank, correct me if I'm wrong, but right now it doesn't seem like that's going to move forward at all.
Would that be at a discount if we did it?
Well, there was a principal balance that was left, and we would have gotten the entire principal.
No, but I'm saying if we paid it off prematurely, I mean, would the note be discounted?
No, but what we would have done, we would have foregone the interest, and what we would have done instead was we were going to sell revenue bonds. So we bond for the equivalent amount of money, and we'd be making bond payments for 20 years instead of paying the city for 20 years, but the bonds would have been at lower interest rates than the note. So we were projecting that we would have had some budgetary savings in the process by paying a lower interest rate on it. But we never even got far enough to
Yeah, I
discuss
agree.
it.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I understand that.
No, I know what
So
you're
they-
saying, and we hadn't actually even negotiated any terms for it. The mayor couldn't enter into that agreement on his own without the Common Council. The Common Council decided that they don't want to go in that direction, so it didn't even get to a situation where we could have even negotiated those kinds of terms.
And then it's our turn, Freckles.
Yeah. I will say, however, though, that our financial advisor, Rick McCarthy at Environmental Capital, told me that there are still some outstanding 2006 bonds that may be ripe for refinancing right now because rates are still down. And Jim and I are going to be receiving numbers from him later this week. So we may go out with a smaller bond issue just to do a refinancing, and that'll produce additional savings for us if it looks like it's worth it. Would have been good to be able to combine the two because you absorb the closing costs between the two issues, and it's more cost effective. But we may do some refinancing, even leaving the promissory note as it is. The other one I mentioned was Arcadis Engineering. I don't have a letter with me, but they're a consulting firm that does a lot of work in the water industry across the country. And there is an organization called the Water Research Foundation, which is a branch of the American Water Works Association, AWWA, which is an international water organization. We belong to it. And the Research Foundation is continually doing a whole variety of initiatives to try to equip water systems with more information and better tools to be able to do their jobs. Some of it's highly technical, others more policy stuff. And a little while back, the Water Research Foundation had put out an RFP for consultants to look at the whole process of rate setting and the communications that go with it. And how do agencies like us or municipal agencies with the city council talk to the public and gain support for water rate increases to be able to do what we need to do with the infrastructure. And so 2 years ago or so, they asked if we would participate. They needed 12 or 14 or so utilities from across the country. We agreed to do that, and they did have some people here on site. They spoke with us and much of our staff, but they also spoke to Bruce and Ellis. And I got a letter recently saying that that report is pretty much done, and there'll be a nice manual coming out on rate setting, and I think probably both Bruce and Ellis will be named as participants and contributors to the process. So once I get those reports, I'll get a couple extra copies and share them with the board. But we do take advantage of opportunities to participate in research, and we get a lot of feedback from those things. We've got some good research that's been done for us in some of these projects. So whenever we have those opportunities, we try to do it.
So the board will
Yes.
have access to the report?
Yeah. Yeah. And we'll be named as a participant in it. Also, last fall, we engaged the Page Group, Page Communications, Nancy Patarini's firm, to come in and help us with a project on developing some branding ideas. And at the time, we did a nice workshop. Unfortunately, we didn't get board participation, but we had great staff participation. And there's a follow-up that's coming now where all the results of what they took, they've developed now into some concepts and some ideas on how to, project our, not only our image, but, our organization and our ethics into the minds of our customers so they know exactly what kind of company we are. And they're gonna be coming back over. I gotta get a date set, but I'm envisioning in the next 2 to 3 weeks, they'll be coming back over and we'll do another workshop to see how those results coalesced and what their ideas and input and recommendations are going to be to us. So when that happens, I will let all the board know, and obviously all of you would be welcome to sit in on that. I think you'd find it very interesting and fascinating. And it'll also be a good opportunity to sit and meet some of our employees and hear what their ideas are. Some ideas come from the board, but others come from the organization and filter up. So once those dates are set, we'll make sure Suzanne and I will get those dates out to you, or at least the first date. And if you can make it, great, we'd love to have you. If you can't, we'll share the results later.
That,
Yes?
with the disaster in Flint, Michigan, have you guys noticed any increase in calls with people that were concerned about their water here, or?
Yeah, and actually that's a great segue, so thank you.
Okay.
My next topic was going to start out with the disaster in Flint, Michigan. We have seen an uptick in that. I had actually a bunch of media inquiries. They were all saying, can it happen here, can it happen here? And for those of you that are a little newer, particularly Mr. Kane and Mr. Karen, the media came to us and said, okay, they're having these problems with lead in the water in Flint, Michigan. What happened? What went wrong? Could that happen here? And for anyone watching at home, the answer is no, it would not happen here. It can't happen here because we do things differently. I'll leave it that way. But what happened in Flint, Michigan was they decided to switch water sources. They were treating the water source they had similar to how we do it with our water. Our water at Hinckley Reservoir is naturally acidic. We've all heard of acid rain. It's a topic that's been talked about since the 70s. And so the watersheds across the Adirondacks tend to be somewhat acidic. So the water that we withdraw from Hinckley Reservoir, if left untreated, can begin to leach lead from lead pipes if there's contact that lasts long enough. And essentially, when I say lead pipes, what I'm talking about is strictly the service line that comes from the main along the street into the property of the house. Certain eras of housing from the 20s into the 30s, they use these lead pipes. And so if you can envision in the middle of the night, the family goes to sleep, nobody runs any water for 7 or 8 hours. In the old days, that water, which was somewhat corrosive and acidic, sitting in that lead pipe could begin to absorb some of that lead into the water. So the old practice was when you get up, run the sink for a few minutes, run it cold, get that blast of that lead-enriched water, if you will, down the drain, and get the cold, fresh water from the main behind it, and everything's fine. And then in the early 90s, the EPA, in tandem with Congress, passed an update to the lead and copper rule, where your lead samples, detectable levels of lead, went from, it was about 80 parts per billion, now it's down to 15. And so it was more stringent, and you either had to meet that requirement chemically or begin tearing your lead pipes out. So this system and others like us were able to do it through a chemical process we refer to as corrosion control. And for us, it's fairly basic chemistry. We add soda ash and lime at the treatment plant. It's a lot like, I tell people, it's like throwing baking soda in your pool so your eyes will burn. Essentially neutralizes the water, changes the alkalinity, and it actually provides a little bit of coating that builds up over time on the pipe as well. So the contact is prohibited, but the water is buffered and neutralized on a pH scale so that even when it sits in that pipe overnight, it doesn't absorb the lead. The advantage of doing it that way is A, it's much more cost effective. B, it solves the problem all the way to the faucet, because even if you change a lead service pipe under the lawn, if they have lead plumbing in the house, it doesn't do anything to address that. Also, you have some brass faucet fixtures inside the house, and up until recently, the alloys used to make those brass faucets had allowable levels of lead as well. That's since been banned. But this is a solution that takes it right to every faucet and solves the problem. So for us, it's been very successful. Ever since it was achieved in the early 90s, all of our lead levels have been down below the acceptable levels with all the EPA guidelines. But now in response to Flint, Michigan, Congress is feeling the heat, and you know how some of those folks react sometimes when there's political pressure. It looks like they are now moving towards requiring that all remaining lead service pipes across the country be ripped out and replaced, despite the fact that the corrosion control is
Do we have
effective.
a binding room on?
Yeah,
That's not hard to do, you just sign your name on the bottom of a piece of paper.
that's it, that's it.
I want
So
to work with you.
for us, we don't know any exact numbers right now, but we're estimating there may be around 3,000 lead service pipes still left in our system per job. Could be anywhere between $2,500 and $3,500, maybe a little bit more. So there's a range. we're looking at as an expense to us, if in fact we're forced to do that, it could be anywhere between $8.5 million, as high as $10.5 to $11 million, which obviously if we needed to do that, we'd be back out selling bonds again. My feeling is it's not necessary, but you know, it may become federal law, so we're watching it very closely. Unfortunately, the American Water Works Association sent an email out last week proudly proclaiming that their entire board of the organization has unanimously voted in favor to support removing the lead pipes.
Of course they do.
You know, they're voting for a number of reasons on that. But Congress hasn't acted on it yet. We're tracking it pretty carefully. Yes, sir?
Should we become proactive and just start doing some
Well, we do some now, but we do them when...
more than?
Yeah, right now we don't have a program for that, but if a customer decides that they're gonna change their half of the service pipe, which is from the house out to the curb valve at the sidewalk, then from that valve out to the main, if our side, quote unquote, is also lead, we'll change that if the customer says they're doing theirs. If we come across leaking services and it's lead, then we do replace them there. So we do some miscellaneous ones, but we do not have a program to go out and proactively identify and start changing them. You're asking me, should we? This is only my opinion. Obviously, it's a board decision. My own opinion is this hasn't hit the floor of Congress yet and hasn't been debated yet. So my recommendation would be, let's wait and see what Congress decides, because it could be some compromise measure. They could have some waivers for people like us that have been successful with corrosion control. Maybe we'll get let off the hook.
Same will
I'm sorry?
Well, no, I'm saying if they come up with an approval on it,
Maybe they'll come out with funding.
they may say that they're gonna give you maybe a portion if you
Yeah,
do so much.
they
stuff.
could. So, you know, my recommendation would be, let's not spend any money until we have to. And if it comes to the point that we will have to, maybe there'll be some relief provided with it as well. You know, right now, at least at the staff level, we're just kind of watching and waiting.
Yeah, but on a priority level, I'd rather replace the 200 miles of
Yes.
pipe that is reaching the age of 100 than worry about pipes that there's
I
nothing
agree.
wrong with.
I agree.
And we just spent how much in unfunded mandates?
Well, the last drinking water rule that was passed was the enhanced surface water treatment rule, which required us to get our open reservoirs offline and replaced with tanks. And compliance with all of that, plus changes we did at the treatment plant. 35, 38
Very
million,
close to that.
roughly, in the mid-30s, $30 million over a period of about 5 years. We did that with 2 bond issues, one in 2006, one in 2008. Those 2 bond issues were $15 to $16 million apiece. You add in closing costs and other items, and you know, we're right up there at $35 million. And that was for essentially marginal improvements in water quality, but it's law, we have to do it, and we need to stay in compliance. So that's something that we're keeping a sharp eye on, and if it starts to change, then certainly we'll let you all know. And if we do get another unfunded or a mandate of any kind, you know, we'll need to find out, is there any funding that's going to come with it, or is it unfunded? And if that's the case, then we need to figure out where to go next. So-
Anything else, Pat?
No, I have more information that I'll provide in the executive session, so unless anyone has any questions.
Any other questions for Pat? Any old business? Any new business?
Ellis?
Sure.
This isn't new business yet, but I just wanted to bring the board up to date on one thing. A while ago, when we were talking about the computer upgrades that were doing in the network for emergency backup, I also brought up with the committee at the time the idea of looking at our technology system and trying to make some prediction in the future. It's not like it used to be where you could predict 5 years in the future. We're lucky if we can predict 5 months in the future. But one of the things that I've noticed is that we don't have the staff or the resources internally in order to do an assessment of all of our technology, what our different departments are using, and what might be coming in the future, what do we need to prepare for, and what might it cost. What I suggested to Pat was, is there a market out there, is there a person out there, or a company out there that would do that type of consulting who doesn't want to sell us something? Which is usually what my criteria when I'm looking for a consultant. I want a consultant to tell me what I should do based on your expertise, but I don't want you to come and tell me what I should buy because you're selling it. And so I asked Pat to look into that, and we have been looking into that. And I've been meeting with Pat a week from this week, next week, just to talk about it a little bit more. Eventually, we'll have to come to the board to consider whether or not we want to spend the money on someone or some company who would basically help the organization predict in the future what it might want to do with technology. Some sort of strategic planning session with an impartial outsider and somebody that doesn't have any skin in the game to give us advice. So it's up to the board whether or not we want to do it at the time, but I just wanted to let you know that I've been having that conversation with them ever since we made a very smart move for our emergency management side to give ourselves some outside third-party assistance, which I think in the end really has extended our resource to protect the system. And obviously, we have a national interest of, it's a national security issue, water, and so we made a very good move in that regard, and perhaps we might want to consider taking another step over this year and next. So I just want to let you know.
Great, thanks, Bruce. Anybody else? Next, we need a motion to go into executive session to deal with two matters, contract negotiations and personnel matters. Second. Any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you.